Askreddit Asks, who's the stupidest person you've ever met, and what story perfectly sums up their stupidity?
I've posted this story before, but this seems like another appropriate thread for this story. One night during high school, my friend and I got invited to a party. I didn't drive back then, so my friend picked me up. All went well on our way to the party. On the way back, however, he got pulled over. As we were pulling to the side of the road, I told him that I was gonna pretend to be sleeping, since I was the passenger. Anyway, I hear the cop get out of his cop car, walk towards our car, stops at the window but doesn't say anything. I can feel the brightness of his flashlight, but I don't hear him or my friend say anything. After about what seemed like an eternity, I decide to open my eyes to see what's going on. That's when I see my friend, the guy who is driving, is pretending like he is sleeping too.
This story is hilarious, but why would you be pretending to be asleep in the first place?
Guy the first went high school with was at a party and asked the homeowner if he could have her tattoo kit. She obviously said no. He left and came back an hour later with a ski mask on, demanding for the tattoo kit. Was arrested the next day. Can't make up that kind of stupidity.
Hey, it's me, your robber.
That's like Skyrim level burglary, huh? Sure, have a lot of fire salts laying around in your shop. And you want how much for them? Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Oh no, there's a bucket on your head. What's happening?
This girl I used to work with before she got fired. One day she came to work with a broken arm and claimed her boyfriend pushed her during a fight and she fell. We all were super concerned for her until she came in a week later saying she stabbed her boyfriend in the hand during a fight to get back at him for breaking her arm. Then a few weeks later she told everyone she was secretly trying to get pregnant. Because if she got pregnant, her unemployed boyfriend would have to get a job and help pay rent. She got pregnant and her boyfriend immediately dumped her.
Phew, I feel sorry for that baby.
I worked with a man named Roy. Roy had theories about how to live life. Roy-conomics. One day, he turned to me and the other member of the crew. You boys wanna know how you get nice things? He asked. You go to the store. And you finance everything. New furniture, new appliances, televisions, stereos, everything. Then, you don't make any payments. And you don't show up for your court date. They'll end up garnishing your wages. But they take way less than the payments would have been. Then, about a week later, you boys wanna know how you buy a house? You apply for every credit card you can possibly get. You take out your entire balance in cash from all of them. And you use that for your down payment. Then, you don't make any payments. And you don't show up for your court date, for people thinking that they may know this specific Roy. I last saw him 10 years ago. At that time, he was in his early 50s, was rocking a grey, blonde skullet, and lived in a hamlet in the province of Saskatchewan.
I almost dated a girl who thought the sun and moon were the same thing. Edit. JEZUS did this post blow up? Exclamation mark. Prior to this post, I'd be lucky if I had 10 responses. Edit number 2. After seeing how many people have had similar experiences, the lack of basic, and I mean basic, astronomy throughout the world is kind of disappointing. Confused face.
Probably Pokemon related.
A guy in my high school who was convinced that the Dutch had sore throats at night from their accent language.
That's fucking hilarious.
Nah, they actually get sore jaws from holding potatoes in their mouths all day long. Edit. After much intensive research, it would appear that the Danish are potato people as well.
My sister, who carved a swastika on her own arm.
Oh dear.
Why does everyone always decide their first carving has to be a swastika? Like, I see kids do this today and it makes no sense. Is the swastika really now the only geometric equivalent of a swear word?
The first time I met Ben was in Improv 101. I was only taking the class for fun. But about half the people there were aspiring actors, including Ben. On the first day, the teacher had us all play this silly game to break the ice, and so we'd all remember each other's names. The rules are pretty simple. 1. Pick an adjective that starts with the same letter as your first name. 2. Introduce yourself using adjective plus first name. And 3. Do a simple gesture that goes with it. So everyone is going around the circle, introducing themselves as Daring Daniel and Lonely Lauren and Awesome Alex, until we get to Ben. Ben introduces himself as Surfer Ben. He proceeded to misunderstand at least one key element of every game or exercise for the rest of the class. I have no clue how this man functions in daily life. He has since managed to get a few featured extra roles on TV. Though
no one can deny Surfer Ben knows how to stand out of a crowd.
Back in my younger and crankier days, I worked with this young woman who was hands down the dumbest person I've ever met. Her highlights include winning a basket auction that included a copy of the Beach Boys album Pet Sounds and complained because she didn't want to hear a lot of mooing. On a day she was driving me up a wall, I convinced her to wait to open her bottle of Coke because the bottle said there was a winner every 5 minutes. She was disappointed she didn't win after waiting exactly 5 minutes. I, however, enjoyed her sulky silence for the rest of the day. The worst one involved her chatting with a manager who was African American. She's white. They were discussing their shared slightly uncommon name and then realized their families both came from South Carolina. She thought for a few minutes and then excitedly exclaimed, "I bet my family owned yours." She was so proud of herself for figuring out that historic connection. The manager didn't say a word and just walked away.
Co-worker was anti-windmills. When I asked why, she said, "There are way too many popping up and we're going to use up all of the wind." I was speechless. I'm never speechless.
My freshman year roommate dropped a class because he wanted to play his PlayStation more. It put him below the minimum credit threshold for his scholarships and his parents owed $40. Oh.
He was smart enough to get scholarships, yet dumb to make the decision. Nice.
He owes $40K but he 100% completed Spyro. I'd say that was worth it, to be honest.
My ex-husband. We were playing rock paper scissors to decide who had to go change the baby, best 2 of 3. Round 1. I throw scissor and he throws rock. I win. Quote, he proclaimed. Round 2. I throw paper and he throws rock. I win. Quote, he says again. Paper beats rock, I tell him. His response? No. Rock beats everything. I spend like 5 minutes trying to wrap my mind around this. Finally I ask him, then, what's the point of even playing? Quote, in total sincerity he says, to have fun. Clarification edits. 1. No, sadly. He was not trolling me. He was completely serious. I know it's hard to believe. But in all fairness, he was born and raised in Florida. 2. Yes. I changed the baby. I did pretty much everything involving the baby after that. 3. As for my own level of intelligence and that of my son, I think he said it best himself when, at 4 years old, he said to me, "Daddy can't help it. What's your excuse?"
I can see why he's your ex-husband.
The first time I ever met my future sister-in-law, she asked me, "If you're Canadian, how come you speak American?" Quote, she was 20 at the time. Edit. This blew up, since a lot of people mentioned this. She's my husband's stepsister. So there's no relation to him, me. Yes. It was a genuine question. I asked her about it later. She's not smart, sarcastic, or witty enough to make a joke like this. She is the living embodiment of the American stereotype you think of.
I don't understand a word you just said. Try speaking American. It's the only language I understand. Bandit Keith.
Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him once, in America.
Literally, this guy got fired last week for doing this. Whenever a customer would enter the store, he would mimic everything they said. Whilst already bad enough, he would try his best to copy their accent too, no matter what accent it was. Multiple complaints to our store have been made about this guy, and he had plenty of warnings. Well, last week he finally got fired while serving an Asian customer, and in full view of our manager he says this. "Herroo, would you like a brag?" Got pulled into the office, where apparently he still maintained he'd done nothing wrong and couldn't understand why he was being fired. Definitely a dumbass.
My mom's cousin was the getaway driver when his friends held up a 7-Eleven. He had some outstanding tickets at the time. As he was driving his moron friends him home, he sped past a cop, who inevitably pulled him over. He defended his bad driving by telling the cop he was just the getaway driver. Then he got arrested. He has since been arrested for a series of other similarly stupid crimes. He also believes that there's a global cabal of Jews who are out to get him. Recently, he got a DUI, which got his license revoked. This was obviously because of the Jews and not because he decided to drive drunk past a police station. When he was denied a gun license, that was the Jews at work. I have no idea why he thinks a global cabal would be focused on some moron from Saskatchewan.
I once called an Uber driver. When he arrived, he immediately asked me, "Are you going to X location?" Closing parenthesis quote question mark. I said, "No." He responded, "Great, because I'm not going to take you to X location." "Fine," I said. The journey got underway, and I was curious as to what he would have done if I'd said that yes, I wanted to go to X location. So I asked him, "Hey, what would you have done if I had said that I did want to go to X location?" He responded, "Look man, I'm not going to fucking take you to X location. Okay, I told you already." I was a bit befuddled. But I tried again. No, I don't want to go there. In fact, you already know where I want to go. It's on your destination map. I'm just curious, what if I did want to go to X location? Would you have refused me the trip? Would you have driven off? He said, "Look man, I can't change the trip now. And anyway, I told you I refuse to go to X location. You gotta understand I'm busy." We spent nearly 15 minutes with variations of this back and forth. He was a fluent English speaker. By the way, by the end of it, I was 100% convinced that he couldn't understand the syntax of a hypothetical. He literally couldn't understand the question, if X situation, which is not the case, then what action would you take? I wasn't even mad, just astonished. How had he navigated through life thus far? What were his financial decisions like? I really wanted to follow him home and make a reality TV show about him or something.
I had manager named Roxanne, Rocky. She was a bleach blonde, literally bleached her hair once a month and then wondered why it broke, fell out, bubblehead who only had the job because daddy owned the restaurant. Rocky was really obsessed with her looks and not much else. One day she told me, and a coworker, that she had her nose job done so that her eventual children wouldn't grow up with the same nose as her. She wasn't kidding. The coworker and I just looked at each other and walked away. We knew it wasn't worth the effort. Lamarckian evolution strikes again.
Guy stole a bike. Cop stopped him and asked where he got it. He said he stole it.
Honesty 100.
Reminds me of the movie The Invention of Lying. What are you doing here? Breaking into your house. You were supposed to be at work. Sorry, I got sick. I'll call the cops. Stay right here. Damn. Do you want a cup of tea while you wait? Oh, that would be really nice. Thanks a lot.
When I was in the military, we had to halt a convoy due to a broken down truck. So I was standing around with a few others for security when I hear a driver behind us yelling for his squad leader. Looking to see what he needed, I observed thick smoke billowing from his truck. He keeps yelling, "Blank. My truck is on fire." Without getting out of his seat and attempting to extinguish the fire, remove the weapons, ammo, and sensitive electronics. I was dumbfounded.
There was this guy at my high school that wasn't too bright and was mostly harmless, but about halfway through decided he was gonna be a thug. One day he goes into a class of first years when their teacher wasn't there and robs all their electronics, cash and valuables at knife point without covering his face, and before he left gave them his real name saying, "And you better not tell them it was me, Jim Conrad, that stole all your stuff." He then proceeded to leave school grounds with all the stolen stuff, but decides against stashing it off campus, and so came back with all the stolen stuff in his backpack and went back to spy on the class with his backpack full of loot while police officers were there taking statements to make sure they weren't ratting him out. Edit. For those that want the end of the story, but it's too buried to find. The kids all rat him out, and when he hears his name he steps into the class proclaiming he'd gut them if they didn't take back, saying he did it, with the officers still in the class and all his loot on his back. He was expelled and arrested, and when word got to our year group everyone just face-palmed. Edit 2. I don't know why he's so stupid, but it wasn't an isolated act of idiocy. It was quite well known by everyone in my year group how dumb he was. In fact, he didn't even qualify for admission, but his family called in a ton of favors to get him in on recommendation.
17-year-old claiming that his IQ is 1.7 if you round up.
Know a girl who posted her online IQ quiz results on Facebook. She was bragging that being in the 35th percentile meant she was top 35%. She's a teacher. 65% of people are smarter than you. That's not because 65% of people who took that quiz did better than you. That's not because you don't know how percentiles work. It's because you posted this bullshit to Facebook.
I knew this guy in high school really thought his practical jokes were hilarious. He would just do stuff designed to piss you off, thinking your salty reaction would make it funny. You may be thinking this guy's a dick and you'd be right. But he's also incredibly stupid. Because every time someone said, dude, fucking chill out with your bullshit, he just blew it off. Social stupidity, I guess. Well, one day he knocked this kid's hat off his head. These guys were friends, but clearly there was some hostility. Other kid picks up his hat and tells Pranker to fuck off. Pranker smacks his hat again. Other kid tells him if Pranker knocks his hat off a third time, he'd knock Pranker's head off. Pranker has a shit-eating grin, completely oblivious to how dead-ass serious this guy was, and got absolutely clocked in the face when he fucked with this guy's hat a third time. All he could say was, "What the fuck, man, chill out." But no one was willing to hear him out.
Guy the first worked with named Buddy bought a huge snap-on roll-away toolbox for over $3. On credit. 2 days later, he sold it to a coworker for $1.500 because he had some overdue bills and had to pay them. Needless to say, he never paid Snap-on for the toolbox. He was off into the winds after he was fired for starting his fourth fist fight at work. One of the other guys I worked with told the Snap-on salesman where Buddy's new job was. And last we heard they are now garnishing his wages. Guy was a nutcase though. He had very thin skin and the slightest thing would set him off. He's go absolutely nuts when he was set off though. He yelled at the security guard and threatened to have him fired because he didn't like his tone. He almost got fired 3 times for fighting. But he was able to win the department manager over until the 4th time. Oh, and one time he was told to put caution tape across a malfunctioning gate and he said, "I don't know how."
Work with a guy who honestly believes he will not die. Also believes that doctors are part of the system, and that they lie to you for profit and personal gain. He does believe in Eastern traditional medicine however. And if you're interested to know his secret to eternal life, it's 6 raw eggs a day and a keto diet.
Gaston?
My friend's father robbed a bank in a small town in Indiana where he lived. This was in the late 70s or early 80s. He spent 10 years in prison for the crime. The same day he was released from prison, he robbed the same bank again. He was caught and back to prison he goes. He did not learn in those 10 years not to rob any banks or anything in that matter. My friend was like, this is what every father does, and did not seem shocked over it.
He may have wanted to go back. Some longtime inmates become institutionalized and have problems functioning in the outside world.
Brooks was here. My 24-year-old cousin.
If your cousin were 4 instead of 24, this would be pretty charming.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and above all, have an excellent day, you marvelous people.